Today I wanted to talk about Romancing Saga 2 and kind of the Saga series as a whole. That's because I think that they've finally done it. Romancing Saga is one of those older series that has a lot of fans, but it's also very niche. And Saga as a whole has been pretty niche, and that's for a number of different reasons. Part of that is because, it feels kind of inaccessible. A lot of the Saga games aren't necessarily linear, although there are a few that are, like the Saga Frontier. Those two games are a bit more linear, but for the most part, Saga tends to have some non-linearity to it, more or less, especially in Romancing Saga. And it can kind of be difficult to figure out where to even go to get quests, let alone to make progress in those quests. That can kind of make it difficult for people coming into it for the first time. They start playing and then they just don't know where to go. The Romancing Sagas are around 30 years old at this point, 2 and 3 and then the first one. They have a lot of old school ideas in them that don't necessarily click with everyone. For me, I'm old as hell, so it doesn't really bother me when there's, things that aren't perfectly clear. But, newer people that are coming into them won't necessarily, they'll be used to all these quality of life things. A lot of people who would enjoy them the most, actually, don't necessarily even know about the Saga series, because those people, at least in the West, tend to play Western RPGs, because Western RPGs are usually the games with more choices. And that isn't, 100% thing, right? There are definitely some Japanese RPGs that do have choices, but for the most part, Western RPGs are known for having more choices. So there are these people who don't necessarily even know the Saga series exists. But I think that if Square Enix plays their cards right, this could be the one that actually breaks through and that really, gets Saga a following, which is something that I would like, because then I get more awesome games. Because Saga is a series that is actually really unique, really cool. And this game, Romancing Saga 2, just has a lot of different things that are going for it. Just to talk a bit about what some of those are, and it's pretty obvious stuff, I guess, but it has tons of different choices that are very impactful, and that they've talked about that in lead up to the release of the remake. There are tons of choices, including deciding the fate of different kingdoms, characters, and more. So there are all of these choices that you make that are actually impacting things that happen, which isn't something that necessarily always happens in games. Sometimes you just get a choice that is like a couple pieces of dialogue throughout the game, which is nice, but these are like real big choices that actually affect things. You also have a fast-paced combat system that feels both old school and modern, now that it is a bit more streamlined in a way that it just feels good. It feels really good to play. I think that's something that people that played the demo will find out, and something I think people should do is go play the demo. It also has a bunch of accessibility options that you can choose to turn off or on, which is so key. It really is. For hardcore fans, you can have all of the difficulty maxed. You can turn off all the waypoints and just kind of enjoy the game as it was, but with a new facelift, all 3D and all of this stuff. And for newcomers who may have been scared to try the game out, you now have easier modes. You have all of these fast travel systems. You have a ton of different quality of life options. You can have all of these waypoints that make things a bit more clear. It isn't necessarily all upside with the new Romancing Saga 2 remake. I do have to say that the game is pretty clearly held back graphically by this being on the Switch. Obviously, it's also on PC and PS5 and all of this, but you can tell that they've made it so that it'll be able to be played on the Switch. It doesn't really bother me too much because I'm a fan of games dating back to like the original NES, so very basic graphics, but I can't help but feel that this game deserves a little bit better than that. And it's something that you just kind of have to deal with at this point, because, Nintendo hasn't upgraded their system yet. they want to get it out to everyone, and it just kind of sucks because it could be something very beautiful to look at, and it still looks nice, but I think it deserves better. It's also a pretty complicated game, even with quality of life improvements, and that may contribute to it staying a bit niche. So there's like a lot of different systems that you have to look into and really look at, play with, mess with. There's so many systems that I will personally love, such as the city building, castle building, in order to unlock new abilities and weapons and all of this stuff in Magic. That could make it a bit harder to get into, but they have streamlined that stuff a bit, so they've made it easier to understand. And they've have a lot of different tutorials and things, which is pretty great. After playing the demo, I would say that there are very few games that I'm more excited for than Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven. Obviously, you know, things like Suikoden and all of these, it's funny that a lot of these are like remakes that I'm so excited about, but, you know, it is what it is, right? The amount of choice and exploration is right up my alley. I'm a big fan of huge, expansive games. You know, you have your games like The Witcher, Red Dead Redemption, all of these sorts of games, and then you take that sort of exploration. It's a little bit different, right? But you mix it with JRPGs and you have something that I'm really going to love. There's a lot of exploration, whether you're interested in searching through every little nook and cranny to find these secret chests, crawling through random dungeons, or exploring all of the different choices that you can make and seeing what all of the different outcomes can be. This is a game that is ripe with opportunity for multiple playthroughs, because you're pretty unlikely to see everything it has to offer just by playing it the one time. And it's actually a pretty long game. It's going to be like 40 to 50 hours. And that is probably if you're not trying to see everything. But even if you don't play it multiple times, I can almost guarantee that it will be worth the money. So you should give it a shot, I think. I think this is one that is going to be a bit more of a free win, I guess, for Square Enix, because the game has already released multiple different times. They've already kind of done a remaster of it, so we kind of already know that the game is good, right? You can just go ahead and look at all of the old reviews from the game. This is something new, something different. I think it's a step up. I think it's something that is really cool that a lot of people will like. Something that can bring people into the fold in terms of the Saga games, and something that I'm just excited about. I think it's going to be great. I think that people should definitely give it a look. If you haven't, there's a demo out already, so you can check it out yourself. I would say play a little bit of it. Don't get too into it. Do what you want, right? But I personally don't want to, I actually haven't played through all of the Romancing Saga games because of a lot of the reasons I said before. They were kind of difficult to get into. I had a lot of different other games that I wanted to play, and having that sort of barrier to entry didn't make me want to, you know, put a ton of time and effort into understanding it. But with this one, all the tutorials and all this stuff that it's coming with, quality of life stuff, it makes it easier for me to get into. So I think it's definitely going to be worth it. Give it a shot. Go check out the demo. I would recommend people try it. It's going to be great. Thanks for watching.